Hello and welcome to ICS Arabia. My guest today is Fred Gordy. He's an author, speaker, an advisor in OT and OT security for many years. Welcome, Fred.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, this is an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to anybody about the topic I'm so passionate about. So, thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and it's also our honor and pleasure to have you. So, why don't you tell us about yourself, your background, what do you do, what did you do, please?
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
I'm very fortunate in that I speak both languages, OT and IT, uh, because up until 2000, I worked in the IT field, and I was getting kind of bored and threw my resume out there. And there was a company that saw my resume, gave me a call. It was called Facility Robotics. And so I went for the interview, and I'm pretty straight shooter. So they described the job, and it was all about control systems. And I said, I think you got the wrong guy because I don't know anything about these things. And they said, well, yeah, because they're beginning to be connected to the networks and ultimately the internet. And there began my journey in 2000 till here. So I've been 25 years in the controls industry. But cybersecurity is something that came along about 11 years ago. And the reason for that is when I first started at Facility Robotics, it was really a culture shock because there was no control. It was the Wild West. I mean, you connected things directly to the network, the internet, no change control, no nothing. But after about a year, I drank the Kool-Aid, as they say, and like, well, who cares if anybody gets into this stuff? Well, 11 years ago, I had a couple of pivotal things happen in my career. I was working for the Southeast's largest mechanical contractor. Two things happened: the Target breach, and then the Tritium Niagara framework. There was some researchers that identified a lot of holes in the system. So that's when I started working, at least trying to develop a cybersecurity program for that company. But as a result, it ignited a passion in me to do what I do because this is a pretty big field. And ICS and BCS, or building control systems, are very similar, but I would say that the culture between the two is very different. And there are some aspects like in ICS, you have HMIs and historians and that kind of thing. We just have a PC sitting there running a application talking to supervisory controllers. So anyway, that's when I began my journey into cybersecurity. So that's how I got here today.
So, mainly you came to cybersecurity from the building.
Yes, I did.
And I saw a couple of your interviews about smart buildings, and there is now something called the Building 5, version 5, something like that.
The which one?
Building 5? No, it's like they number the thing like Industrial 4 and
yes. Buildings 2.0 or something. That's a phrase people are putting on there. 3.0, that kind of thing. Well, smart
buildings.
Yeah, that term, quite frankly, is defined by whoever happens to be saying it at the time. I mean, it has many different definitions, but at its heart, a smart building is anything that does anything automatically. Years ago, around 2000. But I found some information out one time, and somebody said, well, smart buildings hadn't been around for the past 10 or 12 years. I said, well, actually, it's been around since 1939 because the very first smart building was a restaurant in New York or Long Island. The waiters kept going to the door, and they had these big trays, and they would hit the door, and it would knock it out of the hand. So the guy that owned the restaurant came up with an idea for electronic eye, is what they called it. So when the waiters walked up, the doors open and they could go through. So that was the first smart building. But now that thing that was so revolutionary at the time is actually in the US. It's a code for buildings, because if you have, you want to make sure handicap can get in the building and that kind of thing. So having doors that open themselves is not considered a smart building. All right. So fast forward, around the time that I got in, one of my customers was Macy's retail stores. Okay. At the time, they had 480 locations across the United States. And our job was to standardize each one of those stores so they all looked exactly the same, but then bring it up to a single pane of glass so they could control and view the energy from one location. Well, each one of those buildings had a HVAC control system, a lighting system, could have even a trash compactor. And we could read the pressure in there so we would know when to tell the people to come pick up the garbage. Anyway, at that time, that was sufficient enough to be a smart building. Recently, or I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, a large multimedia company, I won't say their name, in New York City, had somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 devices inside of a building, and they wanted them all interconnected securely. So, for example, if I drove into the parking lot and the RFID read that I was in the building, it would trigger the destination elevators to be ready for me when I walked in, and then carry me up to my office, which the lights were already on and the HVAC is set to what I want to be at. And then any meetings that I might have, it's interconnected with the meeting room schedules. So it reads everybody that comes in. And a lot of people don't know this, but elevators, if you walk into a building, at least in the US, there's 8 elevators. All 8 of them are not running all the time. So in the mornings when it's peak time between 6 and 9 or something like that, they may all be running. But after 9 o'clock, they'll shut them down to 2 or 3 because there's less people. It saves energy. And then if they see an influx of people coming into the parking lot, then that tells the elevators, hey, I might need to fire up 1, 2, 3, a couple of more elevators. It's all in the interest of saving energy. This is all integrated with digital signage. So when, you walk into a building, you could literally have, because you have your card access and everything, that when you go to the elevator bank, you can have it say, "Good morning, Mr. Gordy," or something, whatever. So that's an extreme situation, but that's what some call smart buildings. It's totally interconnected, but there's a danger in that, as I'm sure you well know. The more you connect, the less without oversight, the more problems you might actually introduce into the systems.
Wow, okay. So what are the pros and cons of having a smart building? What are the pros and cons?
Well, the pros are huge because, I work for a company called Michael Baker, and Michael Baker is traditionally a federal, they do a lot of work with military and that kind of thing. I came over, I'm a commercial guy. And so the world I'm in, everything's motivated by money. End of story, money is king. I want to get people in my building. I want to keep people in my building. I want to give them a great experience. And I want to use the least amount of money to run that building as possible. So by making a totally smart building, you can have things like FDD, which is fault detection and diagnostic, which tells you, okay, I've got the air filters are getting clogged up and the chillers are working harder. And so somebody needs to go service the filters. Or you begin to see a spike in energy usage for some piece of equipment that has never consumed that much, then you might have something going on inside the piece of equipment. So that's one thing. But then, like with the elevators, you can better manage the energy usage in your building because you can have things turn off when they're not used, turn them on only when they are needed and only for the period of time they're needed. Because you and I both have walked through buildings and you see all these lights on, and That's just burning energy. So from a economic standpoint, a smart building can have a real return on investment or ROI. The risk is, I have studied ISA 62443 for about 5 or 6 years. I love the standard because it is purpose built for our world. And 62443 is very specific about zones and conduits, creating kind of a software-defined network. But even beyond that, let's take lighting, for example. If I installed a lighting system and I wanted to unify the schedule of the HVAC with the lighting, what would happen is I would open up everything between the two systems. And that's not what 62443 says. It says only allow the traffic necessary to perform the action. But that's not what happens in my world. If I'm the HVAC vendor and the owner tells me he wants me to integrate the lighting, then I coordinate with the lighting guy. And the easiest thing to do is just say, okay, we'll just open it up to each other. And then I'll go pick the point I want to do. Well, that's kind of the architecture of the majority of building control systems that are interconnected. It is a very good thing, but it is a very dangerous thing in a lot of respects. And the reason I got involved with 62443 is because there's a nonprofit organization here called buildingcybersecurity.org. And we've worked very closely with International Society of Automation, and they have overseen what we call the commercial building profile of 62443. So that's the benefit, pros and cons. Pros are I get a better return on my investment. Cons are if you don't do it right, which most of them don't. And I can give you story after story after story of assessments that I've done very quickly. I went to Australia, and there was a vendor there to meet me, and it was a known manufacturer. Anyway, he's there. And I said, okay, I'm going to take a look at your HVAC system. He said, well, what do you need to do? And I said, well, I just need to get in and see how it's configured, but I also need to check the network. And he said, well, I can give you a printout of the network. And he said, there's only 4 devices on it. And I said, yeah, but they didn't fly me down here from the United States to Australia just to take your word. And he said, no problem. So I plugged up. There were 32 devices on that network. But check this out. And the people that listen to this probably know, but I'm going to explain what it is in case they don't. But I found a Raspberry Pi. And it's a little project box. You can do pretty much whatever you want to. Well, I looked at the guy and I said, whose is this? And he said, what is it? And I said, it's a Raspberry Pi. I don't know what that is. And I told him it's a little project box. But I also told him, 3 weeks before I went down there was an article released about the Jet Propulsion Lab in the U.S. And it said they found a Raspberry Pi on their network. Nobody knew anything about it. And the bad guys had exfiltrated about 0.5 gig worth of really sensitive information. Well, this company was one of the largest financial companies in Australia. And I said, you need to find that thing right now. It took them 2 weeks. Wow. They didn't know where it is. And they finally found it in some obscure place. And they said, well, what do you think happened with it? I said, I don't know. I said, because you guys don't have good records. I can't, I can go into the access logs, but your logs are not set up correctly. And so any of that information that's been there is probably gone at this point. So anyway, so that's more the norm than you would think. Is about 90% of the buildings that I go into, I find something nobody knew was on that network, because it just happens over time. There's no control.
So, I mean, what type of buildings do you go? Do you go to malls or hospitals or?
So it's everything you said. I've done
Yeah.
hospitals, I've done banks, I've done data centers, Class A commercial buildings, and you'd be surprised. Data centers,
Yeah.
they are very good at making sure their IT assets stay up, right?
Mm.
They have UPSs and generators and all of that stuff. That's great. But you go behind the wall and there's no redundancy on the chillers that are chilling the water that's going to the crack units to keep them cool. So, quick story, this had nothing to do with bad guys, but you can look it up. About a year ago, I think, and I actually put it out on LinkedIn. There's Equinix, the data center people, they had a data center in Singapore. Well, Singapore has some of the most stringent data center rules, as I understand it.
Yeah.
There was a service provider who went there to upgrade the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Two of their customers were DBS Banks, which is a large bank, and the other one was Citibank. Very large financial people. Yeah. So when they did the update to the system, they actually locked the chill water buffer tanks out. So the cooling went away.
Whoa.
So I've worked in data centers all on and off for my 25 years. And I'm like, why would you go in to do an update if you didn't have a plan of action to back out of it? So what happened was they were trying to get things back online to get the data center cooled off. But in the meantime, over 850,000 transactions just went away. There were millions of, I can't remember the exact number, but a lot of things. But here's the thing that was really interesting to me is not only were they not prepared for that, but DBS Bank and Citibank did not, their failovers to their other data centers that they had co-located in wouldn't happen. So they couldn't even get their stuff to transfer over. So this is a case where the system integrator didn't probably plan well.
Yeah.
The companies that lost the data center, Citibank, DBS Bank, their failover preparedness wasn't there. And it makes you understand that even a data center with that level of sophistication and with that level of customer is not necessarily prepared for the OT side. And the OT side, even if it's not connected to the IT side, it can influence the IT side. Yeah. So I could shut you down if I go in and kill your crack units, right?
Yeah. I mean, interesting. I mean, I haven't spoken to people, I mean, with enough people about building and building control systems, because most of the people I talk to are, from oil and gas and electricity, power. But it's interesting for you to highlight the dangers and the risk of building that is everywhere in our society, more than the other facilities, maybe. So
yeah, and that's where ICS and BCS that's where we're not the same. So I know ICS, we have ICS people here and we compare notes. And so it just blows them away when I say, well, here's some pictures of the control systems in a building. And sitting there is the HVAC system, and it's on a PC. It's being backed up to itself. The lighting system is sitting there. The card access system's sitting there, all logged in, and these guys leave the door open. I could be walking by and see that. They're logged in. I could plug a rubber ducky in or whatever I wanted to do and just take down the whole building. Here's a prime example. There was a building that's about a 35-story, 40-story building. One of the guys that was an engineer there, he got an email from, he thought, one of his coworkers. And it said, hey, man, take a look at these pictures I took this weekend. Well, guess where he was doing all this? He's looking at his Gmail on the front end. And that's common. That's rampant. So he clicks the link and it doesn't go anywhere. So he's like, okay, well, the guy didn't put the link in there. So later on, the guy that he thought it came from walked by and he said, hey, man, that link didn't work for the pictures. And he said, what link? And so he said, you didn't send me something? And he said, no, I didn't send you. I didn't go to lake. What lake? He said, and so they both were like, oh, no, this might not be good. So they backed up the system because they didn't have a backup. So they backed it up and then they called their service provider. Oh, wait a minute. They backed it up and it's like, okay, we're good. A little bit later, the ransomware screen popped up. So now the control system front end is locked out, which you can still run the equipment, but you have to go to everything, right? So they called the service provider. Service provider came in, even brought them a brand new machine. Said, let's be careful because we're going to give you a new machine. So he restored it, got it all back up and running, and everybody went home. And they were like, yep, we got by. We went by. We got out of that one. The next morning when they came in, the building was hot. Yeah, I mean, it was like July, August. The building was too hot. And so, you know, you can't, the tenants weren't going to work in there in that condition. So anyway, they went to look at the central plant because it showed down on the head end. The head end was still working, but they went to the central plant and they noticed they had 3 brick controllers. The controllers were shot. Somebody trashed them. The VFDs are the variable frequency drives that run the pumps for the chillers. They had a couple of them that were just burned up. And so the belief was that, well, maybe some of these pumps cavitated. So they went and opened up some of these pumps and looked, and sure enough, they had been pitted and they were no longer any good. So they didn't know if the chillers had been affected. So they had to call somebody to come take a look at those things. And then they had to start getting on the phone and calling for auxiliary cooling, you know, those little units with the big arms. Well, not rental places don't have like 100 of these things. They probably have 5, 10, something like that. So they were having to scramble and get it. Well, anyway, I won't go through the entire story, but it took them 92 days to get everything back online, to get it all back up. Now, they were able to occupy the building. I believe it's about like a week later, but for a week, they lost revenue because they couldn't charge the tenants. The tenants were asking for refunds like, hey, we can't be in your building. You owe us. It's in our contract.
Wow.
So the question I ask building owners now, I don't say, do you want cybersecurity? Because that's just like, oh, I'm fixing to spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
I say, do you want to have, I'll ask them, what does it cost if your building is unusable for a day? And they're like, well, and I said, you don't have to tell me. You just have to tell yourself. What I'm proposing is operational resilience.
Okay.
So, because you and I both know, cybersecurity puts you in a much better position to react, respond. It gives you asset. Nobody has asset inventory. They can't tell you what they got. They can say, well, I got X. Anyway, so you can do planning for future budgeting if you need to do that. So there's so many things about that cybersecurity does for a building owner that is a plus on the dollar side.
Wow. I mean, amazing. I mean, I'm learning from you now because, like I said, I haven't dealt with the buildings before, and I just read about it and hear about it. Most of the time, I go to power stations and but it's totally different now, different perspective and different, really, impact. I mean, I can see the impact they cause, and why not much people like you talk about it? I mean,
well, one of the struggles is when I talk to people and they say, well, nothing's really going on with buildings, right? I'm like, you hadn't heard about it. I've been involved with them. And they were like, well, why don't we hear about it? Well, in the U.S., you're not required to report that. Now there are movements to make that happen because, but we're still not there yet. So there is a lot going on that most people don't know.
Is it because the government don't see the building security as important as the infrastructure, like the electricity? Is it?
Well, I mean, electricity infrastructure. I'm not gonna say that buildings are more important by a long stretch than oil and gas and electrical. I mean, that's obvious what could happen there. The thing about buildings are, they're usually the centers that are the people that are making decisions about the oil and gas and the electrical and that kind of thing. So if they can't function, that's a problem. Our commerce can't happen if things are shut down. If I get in there and heat up a data center, you're toast. So there are implications. Now, there's CISA, which I usually can remember what it stands for. I think it's CISA.org. Yeah. They actually have put commercial real estate in one of the 16 sectors of, if you look up CISA's website, there are 16 sectors: oil and gas, utilities, all of that's in there, but buildings are in there. So awareness from the government side and from the general public is, okay, it is a critical sector. I mean, people don't think about, for example, I told you that media company that I was talking about. Media, especially news organizations, are considered a critical operation. Think about it. I mean, if the news doesn't come out and things are going on, people, it can disrupt the countries. Yeah. So, this one, a story about them is after we had done all our commissioning on the building, 2 weeks later, and I know you're going to appreciate this. I'm not picking on IT because I used to be one.
I'm too. I used to.
Oh, so okay. So this is good because there was an email that came out. Me and my team had been there 2 weeks. This email came out. It was from the head of IT globally for this company. And it said, you are required to be on a call at whatever time it was. There were 40 different vendors of 40 different systems in their building, and me and my team, well, one of my guys, we got on this call and they're like, okay, we have 6,000 devices that are offline. And he said, we got to figure out what happened because we can't have this happen again. And somebody needs to come in and fix it. And so they went to me first and they said, Fred, weren't you guys scanning on the networks? I said, no. We're using Wireshark and we were listening. And I said, but we haven't touched your network in over 2 weeks. And I said, when did this happen? Well, it happened like at 4 a.m. or something like that. And one of the other IT guys that was on there, and he I guess he was doing stuff in the background. He said, let me ask y'all something. If we did a vulnerability scan against these devices, and I'm like, I told y'all not to do that. What do you? He said, well, we ran a Qualys scan on the entire network. And I said, well, you did a denial of service attack. I said, because these devices, they can't take that. They can take hello. And the guy's like, oh, okay, I think I know what happened. Well, one of the vendors is on there. He had 2,000 devices in this building, and they monitored the power consumption of the racks. And he said, the IT head was saying, well, we need to get people here now to get these devices back online. And that guy spoke up and he said, I tell you what, in order for me to get these back online, I have to hard restart them. I got to unplug the power and put it back in. Ooh. And he said, we have to watch them come back up to make sure you didn't fry some of the settings that are in there because it calculated KWH or consumption. And, there's settings you have to do. Well, anyway, he said, I tell you what, I'll get my team in there today. But if you do this again, I'm going to give you a ladder, a laptop, and a serial cable, and you can figure out how to get it done. And So everybody had to scramble because one of their major tenants, who is a part of that media company, but they were moving in the next day. So that's a case where IT.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it happens. I mean, I do research online about exposed devices most of the time. That's my
I love it.
my specialty. So I always find buildings are exposed more than the others. Lots of them connected to the internet. Yeah,
exactly.
backnet protocols and.
Well, I'm glad you brought up backnet.
Yeah.
BBMDs are fun. Backnet broadcast management device. It basically is a router to the backnet devices. There are so many of them out there, and I had the video online where it took me 22 seconds to get into the devices in this building with no username and password, because I was going direct to the BBMD, and there was 400 or 500 devices underneath, thousands of points. And have you ever heard of a software called Yabe? YABE? It's Y as in yellow, A as in apple, P as in Paul, E as in Edward. But it's yet another backnet explorer. You can download that free of charge on SourceForge, and if you can get the device to respond, it allows you to drag points over and change values. You can upload programs. You can do whatever you want to do.
Man, wow, so, that's very, very, very dangerous.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And they're not aware that, and they don't know do they know they are exposed or no? Most of the people you've dealt with.
Sad to say, some don't. But I've actually, I gotta be careful. There is an entity that we would consider a very big problem.
Okay.
I let them know 6 years ago. And if I gave you the IP right now, you could still get in it.
Wow. Still exposed.
Still exposed. I even let some organizations in our government know, because anyway, that's about as far as I want to say. But also aircraft landing lights, obstruction avoidance lights. I've found those recently. So, I mean, it's not buildings, but still it is. Oh, this is not a building, but have you ever heard of Tesla Mate? The Tesla car is spelled T.
Yeah.
Okay. Tesla Mate is a piece of software that lets you watch your car and store the data. Well, there are people that have that exposed directly, and I can watch them drive. I can see where their house is. I imagine if I monkeyed with it, I could get in and do something to the car, but I'm not going to do that for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But and EV chargers. EV chargers have, now I can't remember the protocol, but there's two protocols that it has that it's about as bad as backnet, that you can get into the car through the EV charger. And some tell me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but you can actually go from the car to the grid. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know you can get in the car.
Wow. This is, and another thing that is exposed on the internet.
Yeah. And the EV chargers are being connected to buildings. So that's why that was important to me, is because the property owners are wanting to see how much power these things are consuming, and if they need more service, and then this way they know they need to up that kind of thing.
So, I mean, you now work with the ISO 99 as an advisor, right?
Yeah. I'm my main two people that I'm working for as a volunteer with is Building Cybersecurity, which follows the ICS 62443, and then IS 99, which is the working groups for ISA. So I do that, but also other organizations too. I try to help. And
they always use you as the advisor for securing buildings. That's your strength and your specialty.
Yeah.
do you like? Are there like specific standards in ISO 62443 for the buildings? Yeah,
Yes.
that you are responsible for. Okay.
Yes. 2-1, 2-4, 3-2, and 3-3. We wanted it to be somewhat compressed because we're talking about an industry right now that is basically in kindergarten, first grade. They haven't. If I were to drop the entire 62443 on top of them, it would be like handing a baby a college algebra book. It'd be like,
Wow.
what is this? Because it's just
Wow.
too much. And that's the other thing is I've worked with IT guys that they actually came to work for us at this other company I was at. And they spent most of their time going, I don't understand why they're doing this. And I'm like, quit asking that question and start looking at how things are. But we can't go in and totally uproot everything because, and just like I'm sure it's this way in the ICS world, if a system's up and running, it's like working on a human being while they're wide awake. You can't just go in there and let me unplug all this and plug it back together and put in Cisco switches and routers, and you just can't do it. So you have to work methodically to build up a cybersecurity program.
Do you think you need different skills when working with building security than in ICS? Do you think they're different, or there are some similarities?
There are similarities. In fact, I think in terms of ICS and BCS, we need to be together. We need to be able to cross pollinate and be able to get resources because there's not many of me, and also too is these systems are inside of buildings, and sometimes they're not controlled by ICS; they're controlled by BCS. So if I shut the building down, I could effectively mess up ICS.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not. I would love to have somebody with ICS skills help me out because I know I could show them because they get it. They understand the implications. ICS, there's worse implications in some respects in ICS than BCS. So I believe an ICS guy would be more careful and to take time to understand it. The one that I don't want to say they're not affected, but I've had, like I said, I've had IT guys join, and you have to untrain them. Not, and what I mean by that is you want their skills, but you don't want their rigor. The amount of things they need to come down a little bit. But the other side is if you and I both know a plant operator or a building engineer, if I send an IT guy in there, and I use BCS, for example, if I sent an IT guy to a facility and told him he had to collect information on all these systems, he would go, if I gave him a checklist, he would go to the facility guy and say, hey, I need to look at your central plant. And those guys are not going to help any more than you ask them. And nothing against them, the facility guys. But they're kind of a little leery of an IT guy coming into their world, right? So they would open the door and say, there's the central plant. Well, this guy'd walk in there, he like, what I need to look at, they said there's a controller. Can you show me where the controller is? They're over there. I mean, I need somebody that understands mechanical systems, that understands systems. And that takes time.
Yeah, I agree. I once was in electric facility, and I saw some PLCs in the ground, and it's being cooled by, like you said, HVAC system. So they said they must be cooled, those PLCs, otherwise
burn up.
Yeah, so there's a relation, like you said, they affect each other. So, and the HVAC affect it more because the room has to be cooled.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's a great opportunity for us to learn from each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be more awareness, more courses maybe on building security, because I don't think it's been giving enough exposure and enough for the community, especially the OT community, OT security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm working with some people that to help build basic courses for building
Okay.
cybersecurity.
Nice.
But we need to get the basics to a lot of these people in order to even get started, because it's overwhelming. It really is.
Wow.
I was overwhelmed when I first started looking at this. Like, what do I do? And
All right.
it just takes time.
You didn't learn this at a course or uni, or you just learned it by experience.
I did. So,
All right.
like I said, in 2000, I started learning how to program things like Honeywell systems, Johnson, Siemens, pretty much most of the manufacturers that are out there for building control systems, I programmed. When cybersecurity came along, luckily I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and Georgia Tech research department is here, and they have an ICS program.
Okay.
So they were my customer. So I asked Dr. Fred Wright, I said, hey, do you mind if I come over there? I'm trying to understand cybersecurity so I can develop something for buildings. And he's like, sure. So I went in there, and he and 2 or 3 of his other guys were sitting there, and they went through what they do and were explaining ICS to me, because that's really my first intro to it. And so when he got done, I said, Dr. Wright, can I tell you about my world so you guys can kind of give me some feedback? So I went through this whole thing. They weren't saying a word. They were just looking at me, and I thought they were going to go, oh yeah, little fella, we got this. I got finished, and Dr. Wright said, we're probably about a 60% fit for you. I was like, what do you mean? And so he started explaining that. And then he gave me resources, NIST 853, and I tried to tackle that thing, and I did eventually. And then 882 came along, which is the OT standard, but it still is very heavily flavored on IT, in my opinion. And then I got exposed to ISA through BCS, and I was like, this fits. It needs a little modification, but it's pretty good. So that's how I started down that journey.
Cool. I mean,
so I've been a student for 11 years.
All right. Are there like many companies or that provide this kind of service that you do? I mean, in the US or in the world, from your experience, there are.
There are some. There needs to be more. There needs to be more. I mean, listen, I'd love to have all the business in the world, but I'm only one guy, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also at that point in my career that I'm trying to help people, to encourage them to get into this and to learn. But you got to have some foundational elements. If you've never seen a controller and you've never set one up, it's going to take a lot, So they kind of got to come from the environment, right?
I got it. What about the introduction of IoTs into the smart buildings? What do you think?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be no problem. But with all the cloud services that come along with it and everything, you're starting with a ship that has a bunch of holes in it, and you're poking another one. So, I mean, that's the easiest way that's the way it makes sense to me, is because there's already a ship that has big holes in the side of it, and people are in there trying to bail water out. And then you come along and add IoT, which is good, but the setup is usually, give me a port. Let me just open something up to me. Well, the easiest way is to open up everything to them. I mean, I will say this, that the IoT products do put a lot of security in on their side. I'm concerned about on the building side.
All right. Do you have a smart building yourself, or?
No, do I have one?
Yeah.
My house is
Uh,
pretty smart, I guess. And people say, "Well, why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I know how to secure them." You know.
okay. Cool. Cool.
So
So you advise people not to make their houses smart unless they. Yeah.
well, here's the thing. I got a friend of mine. He's retired from AT&T, and
Okay.
you know he was pretty high up. But anyway, he asked me one day. He said, "Should I be worried about the devices that I have at home?" And I said, "Did you change all your default passwords?" And he said,
Oh,
"I
yeah.
did." And I said, "Kids, do you have anything opened up on your routers?" He said, "No." And I said, then the last question I asked him, kind of, he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "What do you mean, who am I?" I said, "No, who are you?" And he said, "I'm still not following." I said, "If somebody gets to your house, it's going to be a random act. They're not looking for you. They're looking for notable people, people with money. I mean, like, Bill Gates, Warren
Yeah.
Buffett. Those are hunted. You're just a drive-by." And I said, like, if you have a home security system in your house and you have a little sign out front that says, "I have a home security system," and the house beside you, the front door's open and there's no sign that they've got security, which house you going in? He said, "Well, I go in that house." And I said, "I'm not telling you you won't ever get hit, but what I'm telling you is you're not an active target." So take that for what it's worth. There are probably other people in cybersecurity say, "Fred, I can't believe you said that." But I mean, it's the truth. Is you get hunted when there's a reason.
All right.
Ransomware guys are blanket. I mean, they just send out 100,000 things and they hope 3 people hit it, and then they get a $10,000 payoff. They're businessmen. That's what they're doing. So just don't be stupid.
Got it. So it's safe to buy smart technologies and keep them at home, you think? Because nobody target these people.
Well, did you hear about a few years ago, people were saying they got into my baby monitor and started talking to us. Well, you're a hunter, I'm a hunter, but we do it for the good guys, right? So we get out on these different things and we're looking for things that are exposed. They do too, the bad guys. And so I think, nobody's told me this, but when those baby monitors started getting in and they're saying all these nasty things, which that's horrible, don't get me wrong, but they were playing. Those bad guys were playing. They just wanted to see what they could do.
Yeah.
But here's the bottom line is everything can be hacked. I'm sorry. I don't know. I mean, everything we think is good today is not going to be good tomorrow. My house could be destroyed one day because I did something stupid or somebody just outmaneuvered me. So I like the convenience that I have. I can see all around my house, my air. I've got quite a few little gadgets, but I also try to make sure that my doors are closed and locked, and I'm not an easy target.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it has the pros and cons, as we discussed. Okay. So if somebody wants to learn building security or building control security, how would he start? I mean, are there resources? Are there?
There are, and like I told you, I'm working on a course now, but there's organizations in the U.S. And Canada, I know, and there's some in Europe. In fact, there's a guy in Europe. I can't say his name because I didn't ask him for permission, but I know there are things over. And I've talked to several people in the Middle East that are trying to build stuff up for this. Yeah. So if somebody's just saying, "Hey, I want to be in the building control system, cybersecurity," I
All right.
strongly suggest you learn some control system first, because if you don't understand A, how they work, and B, what the importance is, you're going to be blindly going. I mean, it'd be like if I went to school and had never seen anything, instruments as a doctor. I just sat and got all this head knowledge. But that's not the way, medical doctors, you have to go do residency. You have to do things before they turn you loose. Well,
Yep.
if you got millions of dollars in control systems, these building owners are not going to want you to touch them if you don't know the difference between a VFD and a VAV. What are those? They're totally different. So I mean, there's no shortcut to that. But then once you've kind of established it, there's a lot of people like myself, and I know other people that we would gladly help point them in directions. And I'm hoping that organizations like BOMA, Building Operators Management Association, IFMA, which is the International Facility Management Association, they are working on cybersecurity training for buildings. So
Nice.
I would, if anybody's listening and wants to you're welcome to contact me. I'll give you what I know, but you can contact those organizations. I would probably start with IFMA first, not knocking BOMA, but IFMA, I've been working with them on and off for about 3 years, and they've kind of been really leading the charge, so to speak. But BOMA's not far behind them. In fact, I'm going to a BOMA thing tomorrow in Canada, and I'm doing a limited tabletop exercise.
Tabletop.
It's a very, 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 it's that 92-day thing I told you about, but I've got it all condensed down, and I break people up into groups, and then I say, okay, this happened. What would you do? And I give them 4 choices, because obviously if there's 100 people in the room, this could go on for weeks. So I try to keep them controlled. And then each table sits there, comes up with their answer, and then I get them. And then I say, okay, well, if you do this was what potentially could happen. Oh, that was a bad decision, But it's amazing. And I know you've done these things too, I'm sure, is at the end of it, they're like, holy cow, I didn't think of that, because it's like, they don't. I'm just trying to.
Looking at threat intelligence, we've seen famous threat actors targeting oil, electricity, you name it. But I don't know, maybe myself. Are there like threat actors that are targeting buildings that are on the media, or cases that somebody can see and study?
There are, and the reason, but they are very hard to find. I try to publish that stuff. So the one that is probably the most recognizable, but you still have to dig for it, is the Iranian government put out a playbook, and it's how to sink ships, it's a lot of OT stuff, but there's an entire chapter devoted to buildings. And they actually call out manufacturer names, and they say, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. And the British military, I don't know what branch, are the ones that discovered it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So I'm looking through this thing, and I'm like, how good is this? And I'm looking at it. There's some things they missed, but I'm looking at this. I'm like, well, this is a pretty good starting point.
So they are sharing their techniques. How to attack buildings
if you're going up against an enemy, you can blow them up, but you can also do a demoralization campaign, meaning you go in, and if I've seen psychological studies where they say if in the US, if supply chains are interrupted, people will be killing each other in 2 weeks.
Wow.
When we had when the gas line was cut off because a dark side hit Colonial Pipe. there were people getting in fist fights at the gas station because they couldn't get gas. I mean, so whether that's true or not, I kind of tend to think it is. So it's not just about taking control for to do just knock the building offline for that sake, but it's kind of like, see what I can do? I can do that to all of you, and that puts fear in people's minds, and they get all panicky and stuff. So.
What about MITRE framework? Do they have some techniques that are related to buildings?
Close. I'll put it that way. It's developing, but I mean, we weren't really on their radar for the longest time. So I think personally, I think there's more work to be done there.
I think they should cooperate with you so you can share your techniques and they put them for the community and MITRE.
Yeah. I mean, cool. It'd be cool. I'd welcome it.
Yeah, I mean, because they have now 3 sections: enterprise, mobile, ICS. Maybe they will add buildings, maybe, or put it with the ICS. I don't know.
And that's fine too, you know. Yeah. I mean, anything to move things forward, for sure.
Cool. Because I really mean it. Because I've been in the OT for now 13 years, and I haven't seen much information about buildings myself.
No,
I mean,
no. There's
maybe
it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. And it's everywhere. The buildings are everywhere, like you said. They are the banks, they are hospitals, they are factories.
Yeah. Well, in just commercial real estate, and I haven't seen latest figures, but I'm talking about just commercial real estate, Class A buildings, the skyscrapers, not data centers, not hospitals, not any of the others. There are over 1 billion square feet of commercial real estate in the United States. That's not the world.
That's big, yeah, huge. What about the CS2 AI?
Okay.
You are a senior fellow there.
Yes.
What do you do there? I mean, what is it, CS2 AI? What does it do?
It's Control System Cybersecurity Association International. Big, long. That's why he put the CS2, like CS squared.
Yeah.
When I was telling you the story about Georgia Tech, one of the people, and I meant to go to this, but one of the people that Dr. Wright told me I ought to contact is a guy by the name of Derek Harp, who is the head of it, right?
Yeah, well, I know.
So I'm member number 2.
Wow.
He's member number 1. So I'm member number 2. And I went to see him, and so we talked a little bit, and we were on the top of the building that his company is in, and we were sitting up there, and he said, "Fred, I got an idea for something. Would you mind looking at it and see if this works for you? I mean, the building side." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, because I'm in the mode of, hey, anything I can get my hands on, I want it." And so I read through it, and what I like about CS2 AI is it's a non-threatening environment for newbies to experience. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody that's interested, they do a real good job of making sure you don't feel stupid.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Because as practitioners in this field, I mean, I try to be as open and easy to get to as most, but there are some people like, well, that's just stupid. You know, they won't. So we started having meetings in Atlanta, and began to get people in and inviting people that were just interested. You know, hey, maybe I want to make a career change, and so they've done a real good job of that. The other thing is everything that they do is online and available. I mean, some of it you have to pay, but the annual dues are $150. I mean, it's not much. And they put on events and stuff like that. It is truly a learning platform. Okay. And they're another one that they've taken stuff that I've done, they put it out there. So, you know, if you can look through some of my stuff that's on there. There's a lot of videos, webinars, that kind of thing that they have. And you can just pick and choose and learn. But also too, the experienced people like you and me, I'm still learning. I get on there and I hear some of these other guys, and I'm like, wow, I didn't think of that. So my philosophy is the day I start saying I've got it, then I need to quit. Because if we don't got it. We got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So it's a very good organization. It's a nonprofit. I think it's worth it.
All right. So before we close, Fred, do you have any words, any recommendations, any advice, any comment, please?
Yeah. So I try to make things simple. I'm just, simple guy. So when somebody comes up to me and says, well, what do I do? I have 3 things you need to ask yourself. Do you know what you have? Meaning, do you have an up-to-date and accurate inventory?
Okay.
Most of them don't. Do you know how it's connected? Most of them don't. Do you know who has access? Most of them don't. So I tell them, look, I want to help you, but those 3 questions have got to be answered first. The rest of this we'll work on after you get this, because these are core foundational. And this, again, my opinion, but I've looked at NIST, I've looked at ISA, I've looked at several other standards. In the heart of all of those is know what you have, know how it's connected, know who has access.
Yep.
So a building owner needs to do that. Before you can call me, and I'm happy to help you do that. But that's probably something you need to ask yourself before you call me, before you call anybody else. Because if you don't know those answers, that's what they're going to do for you. They're going to help you find out what you got. They're going to help you find out how it's connected. And they're going to find out who has access. And that's perfectly fine. But sometimes you can answer those questions on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you summarized it all. I mean, that's the gist of it. I mean,
I think so.
Really, yeah, I like this advice. Thank you, Fred, for joining ICS Arabia.
I am so thankful you asked me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate you coming and sharing your expertise on buildings. This is the first episode we talk dedicatedly for buildings. So it's one of its kind. I hope it's not the last one.
I hope so too.
Maybe we'll talk another episode on buildings. Something happens, some new ideas you come up with. You're welcome to join us, and we will love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred, and thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.